Shabbat Shalom, Body of Messiah. Mark Pulley here with YHWH'S Assembly in Fort Myers, Florida, bringing you another teaching from Yah's laws and commandments. I pray that as this teaching finds you, that you are healthy, whole, sound, and complete. You are growing and multiplying in your understanding of Yah's laws and commandments. So today we're going to talk about Christmas, and that from the scriptural point of view, and this is not meant to offend anybody, but this is meant to bring revelation knowledge, biblical Torah information, and historical fact information to the body of Messiah, as well as to those that are not yet in the body of Messiah, or predominantly that have one foot in quote-unquote Christianity, Rome's version of Christianity, which is pagan, and one foot in the Hebraic faith in believing in the Elohim, in the mighty one of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and have received Yahshua as their Savior. There are many people that have received Yahshua, or they might call him Jesus. Now, Jesus is a false name, but nonetheless, in their hearts, they think they are approaching the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the creator of the earth, the Messiah that was born through the Virgin by the power of Yah's Spirit. And they have been deceived by Rome's pagan philosophies, and paganism was adopted into the faith, so to speak, in the 3rd century and twisted everything around. And so many people believe that they are celebrating the Messiah's birth, even though there is no biblical commandment to do such thing. There is no example of the first 300 years of the body celebrating the Messiah's birth. So if it wasn't important concerning Messiah's birth, if it wasn't specifically mentioned in the scriptures, then it has very little value. Now, we can go over some facts that will reveal approximately when the Messiah's birth was, and we can do that by tracing and going through some scriptures concerning Elizabeth and John the Baptist and Miriam and Yahshua and their birth. Now, I did a teaching on Yeshua's birth line during the Feast of Tabernacles, so I would encourage you to listen to that teaching because it will go into depth. But I just want to go over it real quickly. According to the Chorus of Abia, and you can read this in Luke chapter 1 verse 5, and here we can read this real quickly. It says, "There was in the days of Herod, the king of Judea, a certain priest named Zacharias, of the course of Abia, A-B-I-A. And his wife was of the daughters of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. And they were both righteous before Yahweh, walking in all the commandments and ordinances of Yah, blameless." So they desired a child, but they had not received a child. And yet they were righteous. They were obedient to Yah's laws and commandments. They lived according to the Torah. And yet the next verse says they had no child. And so basically you can just keep reading it and study that out, but for time's sake, I just want to go over. So when there was twice a year that the priests had to fulfill their duty, and one of those times of the years was in the spring festivals, and the other time was in the fall festivals. So when Zacharias basically got done in the spring festivals, he got home, and it was around the early part to the middle part of June, and that is when the conception of John the Baptist literally took place. And then if you read Matthew's account, remember Matthew was a Hebrew, if you read Matthew's account, it said that when Miriam went to visit Elizabeth, Elizabeth was in her 6th month. So if you just do a little math, I'm not the greatest in math, but if you just do a little math, 6 months from the first part of June is the first part to the middle part of December. So Yahshua was conceived in Miriam at the beginning to the middle part of December. Like we said, you can't point pit biblically an exact date, but you can get the season. Okay? So then we know that John's conception was in June. Yahshua's conception was the first part of December. And so through normal process of pregnancy, if you go from John's conception in June, 9 months, that would bring you to the latter end, middle end of March, which would be the spring feasts. And that's when John was birthed. Now, Yahshua's conception was in the early part or the middle part of December. And if you add 9 months to that, that would bring you to the latter part, or maybe even middle part of September. And so, since there is no records that exist of Yahshua's birth, providing an exact date is not possible. However, it is reasonable to discern by the scriptures that his birth occurred during the Feast of Tabernacles. But like I said, you can go through the teaching I did on Yahshua's birth timeline and get greater detail. So today we're going to talk about Pagan Christmas, the shocking pagan origin of Christmas. Many people that you talk to about this, even though they say they're believers, they are steeped in this tradition of men that makes the things of God or of Elohim to no effect. And it says in Mark 7 and Matthew 15 that they hold on to the teachings of men, teaching as doctrine. See, people are teaching as doctrine that Messiah's birth was December 25th, and that is so far from the truth. One example, and this is an historical fact, is that in the month of December, it is the rainy month in Israel. It is very cold, and if you just Google historical truth on this and the I can't even say, you know, the weather people, meteorologists, thank you, baby. They will tell you that it's approximately anywhere from 2 degrees to 30 degrees during the month of December. So when people have read in the scriptures that the shepherds were in the field watching over the flock by night, it couldn't have been in December. It couldn't have been in November. The historical fact is, during the spring and summer and early fall, a shepherd would watch over the flock. They took them to the mountain range so that they could feed off of fresh grass, so on and so forth. But then when it came November, they brought them in. Why? Because the ground was saturated. Some of the ground could have been frozen. Plus, there would have been no grass to feed on. Plus, it would have been freezing, and shepherds would not have been able to survive. The sheep would not have been able to survive. So if you just go by natural common sense, you see that Yahshua's birthday, that they call Christmas, could not have taken place. Now here's another interesting nugget, and that is in Roman Greek mythology, they called all their gods Christos, or Christ. So they called Baal Christ, they called Nimrod Christ, they called Tammuz Christ, they called Saturn Christ, they called all the false gods Christ. And it was the Greeks that translated the scriptures out of Hebrew into Greek, and they translated the word should have been Messiah HaMashiach, that Hebrew word, they translated it into Greek to say Christos, meaning the anointed one, but they called all their other gods anointed one, and there is no way that the Messiah would have allowed this, or Yah would have allowed his son's name to have any part of anything to do with pagan gods. And so that's another nugget to think of. Then the other nugget is the word mass has to do with druidness, has to do with witchcraft, has to do with praying for the dead, necromancy. So there is no way that Yah and Yahshua would have anything to do with the birth of the Son of Elohim on the Day of the Dead, on anything to do with witchcraft, anything to do with necromancy, anything to do with a word Christ that represents false deities. In my opinion, I have removed from my vocabulary, and the people in our fellowship have removed from their vocabulary, the word Christ, because it's a false name. Yahshua was and is the Messiah. Call him the Messiah or call him HaMashiach, because that's who he is. So what is the true origin of Christmas? Where did it come from? Did you know Yahshua the Messiah was born nowhere near December 25th? But that was the birthday of the Sun God, S-U-N-G-O-D. Sol Invictus, or Mithras, or Saturn. Did you know December 25th was the concluding day of the pagan winter festival called Saturnalia? Now here's another nugget. Think of this. And you might need to write it down to get the full impact. You have the word Satan. You have the word Saturnalia. You have the word Santa Claus. And you have the word Saturn. Do you see how they're all connected? It has nothing to do with Yahshua, the Messiah, or Yahweh. And it has everything to do with sun god worship. It has everything to do with the festival of Saturnalia, which was a pagan festival. Now here's some other facts. when the Puritans first came to America, they did not participate in Christmas because they knew that it was connected with the festival of Saturnalia. Here's another fact, that in the city of Boston, it was literally outlawed and against the law, and you were fined 5 shillings if you participated. Another fact, I believe it was in Louisiana in the 1800s, if you participated in it, it was outlawed. It was against the law. So in different parts of the United States, it was literally against the law. But just like Satan and the people that were participating in paganism put so much pressure on the church back then, put so much pressure on the Puritans, on those in Congress, those that were part of the ordinances, that established your laws, your legislature. They put so much pressure on them that they finally caved in and compromised. Did you also know, this is a fact, that the very first year of Congress was in session on December 25th. Why? They believed that it was not biblical to participate in it. They believed it was against everything that was called holy and that was called and ordained by Yahweh. So these are just a few biblical, historical facts. Do your own research. Did you know that the word Santa Claus comes from the word Saturnalia, and Satan and Saturn? Interesting fact. Also, how did this pagan feast become connected with Christianity? And saying, I do not call myself a Christian, because Christians are connected to paganism. Everything that is based upon the worship of the sun gods, and if you meet on a Sunday, you are participating in the worship of the sun gods. Everything that's participating in that is part of paganism. And Christians, and this is hard to stop, I used to be there, I know, but when I saw it in the Word, it didn't offend me. It corrected me. It brought forth a repentance within me to change my course of direction. And as a pastor, I began to change the course of the ministry in which we shepherd, the direction it was going, and realign it to Torah. Realign it to what thus saith Yahweh. Okay, and here's another interesting fact. Although the whole world celebrates Christmas as a Christian holiday, including millions of non-Christians, is Christmas really Christian at all? Think about that. Now here's here's a historical fact. Every nation upon the face of this earth celebrates Christmas. Every pagan nation, whether it's in Rome, whether it's in Greeks, whether it's in, what's some other nations? Egypt, whether it's in Islam, whether it's in China, North Korea, Mexico, wherever it is. Every pagan nation, every nation upon the face of the earth, except for those that are of Messiah, except for those that are Torah-minded, except for those that are Torah-obedient, they celebrate Christmas. Why? Because they're pagan. And if the pagan world, if Babylon is celebrating something, that should tell you that it's not biblical. If the world accepts it, it's not biblical. The world doesn't accept the Shabbat. Why? Because it's biblical. The world doesn't accept the feast days of Yah that he said was forever. Why? Because it's biblical. The world doesn't accept that his name is Yah and that the Messiah's name is Yahshua. Why? Because it's Torah. It's Torah, it's biblical. See, everything starting in the 3rd century, everything that was Torah-minded, everything that was based on Torah, everything that was based on Yah's laws and commandments, Constantine and Catholicism and Rome rose up and came against it and declared it illegal, persecuted them, and murdered them if they continued in them. And they mandated that everybody worship on the day of the sun. They mandated that there would be an interaction of quote-unquote biblical values with paganism. And they just changed its name to deceive people into thinking that it was biblical and that it was of Yah and of the Messiah. But until our eyes are open, see, so many of us have celebrated these holidays and we just accept what we've been taught that they're biblical. Like Easter. Nothing biblical about Easter. It's a holiday of paganism honoring pagan fertility goddesses. And the winter solstice is a winter solstice honoring pagan gods. Now, did you know that the very first police force was in New York City because of the celebration of this pagan holiday? Do you also realize that as you research that during the feast of Saturnalia, which is what is called Christmas, it was a big drunken party orgy beginning December 23rd and going about approximately 7 days. And everything was viable. Everything was permitted. Sex with children was permitted. Homosexuality was permitted. Rape was permitted. Murder was permitted. They literally done away with all the courts and the laws. During that time, you could do whatever you wanted. What does that tell you? And when you look at Christmas and that celebration here, it's all a bunch of drunkenness. The facts say that the amount of crime during that season and the amount of suicides during that season is abundant. How many people get oppressed because they can't give their children gifts? And see, all that gift giving has to do with Nimrod. And see, the fact is, we are not supposed to be participating in it. The fact is, it's the celebration of the festival of Saturnalia, of Saturn, of Baal, of Tammuz, of sun gods, of Semiramis. We are not to be participating in any of this. And it was banned in America at the very beginning of time. Here, let me just go over some of these things. I'm going to go kind of look through this real quickly. If we read in Werner Keller's book, The Bible as History, the following admission: December 25th is referred to in documents as Christmas Day in AD 324. That's the very first time. Under the Roman Emperor Justinian, it was recognized as an official holiday. An old Roman festival played a major part in the choice of this particular day. December 25th in ancient Rome was Dies Natali Invictus. the birthday of the unconquered, the day of the winter solstice. At the same time in Rome, the last day of Saturnalia, which had long since degenerated into a week of unbridled carnival. And you can read this on page 331 of that book. Doesn't it seem rather strange that the so-called Christian church should choose a day to celebrate the Messiah's birthday, the same day that is identified as the day of the birth of the unconquered sun, the day of the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year when the sunlit part of the days start becoming longer? What does this have to do with Messiah anyway? It has nothing to do with that. Was Yahshua the Messiah born anywhere near December 25th? Keller goes on, meteorologists, as well as historians and astronomers, have something of importance to contribute to this question of the fixing date of the birth of Yahshua. According to St. Luke, there were in the same country shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night. Meteorologists have made exact recordings of the temperature at Hebron. This spot in the southern highlands of Judah exhibits the same climatic conditions as Bethlehem, which is not far distant from Jerusalem, about 6 miles. The temperature readings show over a period of 3 months that the incidence of frost is as follows: December 2.8 degrees, January 1.6 degrees, February 0.1 degrees. The first 2 months also have the greatest rainfall in the year, approximately 6 inches in December, nearly 8 inches in January. According to all existing information, the climate of Palestine has not changed at all in the last 2,000 years. Consequently, modern meteorological observations can be taken as a basis. Quote, at Christmas time, Bethlehem is in the grip of frost, and in the promised land no cattle or sheep would have been in the fields in that temperature. This fact is borne out by remark in the Talmud, Talmud, hopefully I'm saying that correct, to the effect that in that neighborhood the flocks were put out to grass in March and brought again at the beginning of November. They remained out in the open for almost 8 months. Around Christmas time, nowadays, both animals and shepherds are under cover in Palestine. When St. Luke tells us, points therefore to the birth of Yahshua having been taking place before the onset of winter. How interesting, how fascinating. As we explore the time of the birth of the Messiah, we find he was born nowhere near December 25th. And as we explained at the beginning, it was during the Feast of Tabernacles. All right, so and we went through this, when was Yahshua born? So let's just skip that because we went all over that. So who was born on December 25th? And when you hear this, it's going to blow you away. It's going to get you to think. And I just pray that this video, that people that are not in Messiah especially would hear it at some point and be open to it. I know the first time this information was told me, because it wasn't instructed by much scripture, I did not understand it and rejected it. But then Yah, by his Spirit, brought it forth and then I grasped it. So, if Yahshua the Messiah was not born on December 25th, in other words, whose birthday is the whole Christian world and the whole pagan world, I don't like using Christian, the whole pagan world really celebrating on December 25th. So when you gather under your pagan tree, opening your pagan presents, who are you giving and who are you celebrating? When you put everything on that pagan tree that you put on it, you will find all the way back to 3000 BC that they put these instruments, these items, on their pagan trees, representing their pagan fertility gods, and that is what you are participating in. It doesn't matter that in your heart you say, you know, I believe I'm doing this to Yahshua. We're going to see at the end of this, hopefully at the end of this, I'll go over some scriptures, that you cannot make holy what Yah has called unclean. What the scripture says is an abomination is still abomination. When homosexuality is an abomination, it's still abomination. Paganism is still abomination. Rape is still abomination. Murder is still abomination. Worshipping idols are still abomination. It's in the scriptures. You can read Leviticus 18. Just think about Exodus 32. Moses was a long time coming back as he was up on the mountain with Yah. And Aaron and all the other priests decided to gather all the gold and melt it down and to worship Yahweh. Their heart was to worship Yahweh by building a golden molten calf. And what happened? Yahweh judged them. 3,000 men were judged and lost their life because of their idolatry. Yahweh was so angry he wanted to wipe them out and start over with Moses. And through Moses' intercession, Yah relented. But nonetheless, it reveals the truth. You cannot combine paganism and truth and think you are in right standing with Yahweh and that Yah will accept it. He will not accept it. He will reject it, and he will reject you, just as he rejected the children of Israel. All right. So who was all born on December 25th? Who celebrates this? And again, in the book, The History of Rome, quote, "Yet there was also another pagan belief during this same epoch that much more nearly competed with Messiah for control of the Western world. This was the cult of the sun, which was revered by millions of the inhabitants of the Roman Empire, and its religion for a time even became the state of worship. In Rome, the divinity of the sun came very early on, and then centuries afterwards, in the superb dome of Hadrian's Pantheon, hopefully I'm saying that right, the central opening surrounded by star-like rosettes represented the solar orbit. Before long, the emperor established a massive temple of the unconquerable sun." Now on my Facebook page, I put this whole teaching on there so that you can read that. The birthday of the god was to be on December 25th. And this was transformed into Christmas Day, was one of the heritages that paganism, Christianity, owed to his occult. Notice, Christianity took over the birthday of the sun god, the cult of the sun, transformed it into Christmas Day, the birthday of Yahshua. It was in reality the birthday of the pagan sun god worshipped by millions throughout the Roman Empire, and it is not the birthday of the Messiah. There are other names. In the time of Constantine, the cult of Deus, Sol Invictus, was still at its height, and the portrait of the sun god was on the coins of Constantine. Likewise, it must have been in this time, and with the intent to transform the significance of an existing sacred day, that the birthday of Yahshua, which had been celebrated in the East on January 6th, was placed in Rome on December 25th, the date of the birthday celebration of Sol Invictus. This date appears in a list of dates probably compiled in AD 336 for the year 354. Are we beginning to get the picture? This was in the 4th century after the Messiah. At this time, the church moved to incorporate the birthday of the sun god into the so-called Christian, or like I like to say, churchianity calendar or paganism, converted his birthday into the birthday of the Messiah himself. That which was distinctly and definitively pagan now was quote-unquote baptized by some act of quote-unquote magic, was transformed into something quote-unquote Christian. It was now called Christian, but in truth, it still had a pagan heart and core. Okay, now let's just go over some scriptures because of lack of time, and we can see that. And if you go to my Facebook, Mark Pulley's Facebook, or Yahshua Assembly's page, you can read this all, because there's just so much to it. But for a lack of time, I just wanted to hit some highlights. So it's definitely a day where all the sun gods were worshipped on December 25th and celebrated as their birthday. And if you do your own research, there are many names of sun gods, but it all is referred to Satan. It is all referred to Baal, the chief sun god. Whether you're in India, whether you're in China, whether you're in North Korea, whether you're in America, you call him Jesus. That's really in reference to sun gods. And so let's look at what the scripture says. Malachi 3:8. It says, I am Yahweh and I do not change. So nonetheless, it says clearly right here that what Yah did in the beginning, he's going to do in the end. And if what was permitted in the beginning, he's going to sanction in the end. What was not permitted in the beginning, he will not permit in the end, and we are in the end. Psalm 111 verse 7 and 8 basically says, his laws and commandments are forever. All right, Leviticus chapter 18 verses 2 through 4. It says, I am Yahweh, your Elohim. You must not do. Understand that. He said, you must not do as they did in Egypt. So, see, in Egypt, they worshipped the day of the sun. They celebrated and participated in sun god pagan worship. They celebrated the birthday of the sun gods on December 25th. This went back 3,000 years, history says, in Egypt. And if you do some good study, Jim Staley has an a good teaching on YouTube that goes into it. Truth Unedited has some good teaching, and it goes into all this and shows you images and pictures of it. There are many ministries. Yahweh Restoration Ministries, another good one. And there are probably a million more that shows the dates and all that. I don't know how to do that, and maybe someday I will learn, or someone will come to our assembly and teach us how to do that, so we can put that up on our YouTube channel. But right now, this is all we have the understanding to do. So, in Leviticus 18:2-4, it says, I am Yahweh, your Elohim. You must not do as they did in Egypt. And see, what part of you must not do we not get? And see, those that are in churchianity, those that are in pagan Christianity, you know, what part of when Yah says you are not to do this do you not get? And I'm not trying to be mean-spirited, but I'm just trying to, with that prophetic anointing, slap you upside the head and say, wake up. Okay, I am Yahweh, your Elohim. You must not do as they do in Egypt. Where you used to live, you must not do as they did in Canaan. And see, the Canaanites were sun god worshippers. The Canaanites worshipped the sun gods and celebrated the pagan festival, the winter solstice, on December 25th, and worshiped those sun gods' birthdays on December 25th, and were involved in all form of pagan sexual immorality during that week that everything was to go. You know, if you do your research on the mistletoe, when you were caught under the mistletoe, they just didn't say you had to kiss whoever you were there with. It literally meant you had to have sexual relations with whoever was under that mistletoe. That meant a man with a man. That meant a person with a child. Gross, yuck, yuck, yuck. That meant any form of sexuality and sex had to be performed right then and there under that mistletoe in front of everybody. That's what pagans celebrate. Whenever you look up any form of pagan celebrations, it always involves great, gross sexual sin. It also includes offering humans in human sacrifice to the sun gods. To the sun gods, they would offer children and adults, male and female, and burn them alive to the sun god Tammuz, Baal, Nimrod, and Semiramis. That's what you are celebrating when you put up that mistletoe and you think it's just so cute. Or when you put tinsel on your Christmas tree. I know, we did the same thing. Or when you have pine cones in your house. It's all about fertility goddesses. And that's what you are worshiping. And he said when they did this in Canaan, he said, do not follow their practices. Leviticus 18:2-4. He said, you must obey my laws and be careful to follow my decrees. Deuteronomy 12, verses 29-31 says, you must not worship Yahweh, your Elohim, the way that the pagans would worship their Canaanite gods and goddesses. You and I are not to worship. We cannot think we can worship Yahweh this way. So if you are involved in thinking you can worship your Creator, the Messiah, the Mighty One, the Creator and the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, by you participating in Christ's Mass, a celebration of the dead, a celebration of Saturnalia, a celebration of paganism, you have been deceived by Satan. You have been tricked by those that have been over you, whether it's parents or spiritual leaders, and you have been deceived into paganism, and it will not be accepted by your Creator. It will not be, and he literally says in 2 Corinthians 6 and in the book of Revelation when it talks about Babylon, to come out from among them and be ye separate. The word Hebrew means to cross over. That is what I am. I am a Hebrew. I crossed over from paganism into the Torah, into obeying Yah's laws and commandments to the best of my ability. And if I fail, and I'm sure I have grace and mercy through Messiah Yahshua, but I am not purposely involved in these gross conducts. Matter of fact, we do not participate in anything to do with Christmas, New Year's, or any other pagan holidays. We don't go to Christmas parties. We don't celebrate it by having a big feast on Christmas Day. We don't celebrate New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, or we don't celebrate Easter. All of that is so full of paganism, and when you study it out, you will see that it's all about reincarnation, the belief of reincarnation, that Nimrod was the sun god, and that Tammuz, Tammuz and his mother Semiramis was Nimrod's wife, and Tammuz had sex with Semiramis, and that's how the sun god Tammuz was born. And he came down in an egg. Remember that show, Mork or Mindy? That's what Hollywood was introducing and trying to get us through laughter to accept paganism. Just do your research on it. I talked to you and revealed to you Exodus 32, so we won't go over that. But in Leviticus 18:24 through 30, Yahweh says, do not follow any of these detestable customs. He calls them detestable, and he will not accept them. In Jeremiah 10, verse 2, it says, do not do or do not learn the way of the heathen. Do not learn their pagan customs. And then it describes going out into a field, cutting down a fir tree, bringing it into your house, nailing it to a stand, and dressing it with different types of things, which we call a Christmas tree. And Exodus 20, excuse me, let's go there. Exodus chapter 20. Exodus 20. And we'll begin reading verses 30 through 39. Okay, it says, wherefore say unto the house of Israel. So if you are in Messiah, this belongs to you. Thus saith Yahweh, are you polluted after the manner of your fathers? And commit you whoredoms, sexual fornication, after their abominations. So it calls it abominations and whoredoms. For when you offer your gifts, when you make your sons pass through the fire, you pollute yourselves with all your idols. See, Israel kept going back to idolatry. Even unto this day, O house of Israel, as I live, saith Yahweh, I will not be inquired of by you. And by that which cometh into your mind shall not be at all that you say, we will be as the heathen, as the families of the country, to serve wood and stone. As I live, saith Yahweh, surely with a mighty hand, and with a stretched out arm, and with fury or anger, poured out will I rule over you. And I will bring you out from the people, and gather you out of the countries where you are scattered with a mighty hand, and with a stretched out arm, and with fury poured out, judgment. I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there I will plead with you face to face, like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of their land. And what did he plead with them? To turn away from their idolatry. So will I plead with you, saith Yahweh. I will cause you to pass under the rod, judgment, and bring you into the bond of the covenant. And I will purge out from among you the rebels, those that refuse and reject Torah, those that refuse to get rid of their Canaanite, paganism, idolatry. Christmas. Excuse me, I need a little drink of water. I will purge out from among you the rebels, and them that transgress against me. So we see here, then any form of paganism, including Christmas, is a transgression against him, is a transgression against his laws and commandments. And if you choose to continue, you are transgressing against Yah. And it doesn't matter if you say that you have accepted the Messiah, or you call him Jesus in your heart, and that his blood sacrifice will forgive you. It does not forgive willful rebellion. It does not forgive willful rebellion. Understand that rebellion is witchcraft, and stubbornness is idolatry. And when you continue in it, the sacrifice of the Messiah on the tree will not forgive it. You are deceived into thinking that you can practice witchcraft, that you can practice idolatry, that you can practice paganism, and still be accepted in the beloved, still be grafted in to the children of Israel, still be in the kingdom. What did the Apostle Paul say in Galatians 5? Those that practice witchcraft or those other works of the flesh cannot and will not be accepted in the kingdom, or walk and receive the kingdom. What did Revelation say? I believe it's 19:20 or 21, somewhere in those. Those that practice these things will be on the outside. Those that were involved in whoremongers, those that were involved in sexual sin, those that were involved in witchcraft, and celebrating Christmas is participating in witchcraft, and you will be on the outside looking in unless you renounce it, unless you ask Yah to break the power of it and deliver you from it. So he says, verse 38, I will purge out from among you the rebels, them that transgress against me. I will bring them forth out of the country where they sojourn, and they shall not enter into the land of Israel. You shall know that I am Yahweh. As for you, O house of Israel, thus saith my sovereign Yahweh. I'm reading this out of Yahweh Restoration Ministries Restored Names Bible. As for you, O house of Israel, thus saith my sovereign Yahweh, go ye serve every one of you his idols. Hereafter also, if you will not hearken unto me, but pollute ye my holy name, no more with your gifts, with your idols. So he's saying, Linda, do you have your version there?
Yeah, where are you?
Oh, you're not there? Never mind. As for you, O house of Israel, thus saith my sovereign Yahweh, go ye, serve ye every one his idols. Hereafter also, if you will not hearken unto me, but pollute you my holy name, no more with your gifts and with your idols, for in my holy mountain, in the mountains of the height of Israel, saith my sovereign Yahweh, there shall all the house of Israel, all of them in the land, serve me. There will I accept them, there will I require your offerings, and the first fruits of your oblations, with all your holy things. I will accept you with your sweet Savior when I bring you out from the people, gather you out of the countries wherein you have been scattered. I will be sanctified or set apart in you before the heathen, and you shall know that I am Yahweh when I bring you into the land of Israel, into the country for which I lifted up my hand to give to your fathers. And there shall you remember your ways and all your doings wherein you have been defiled, and you shall loathe yourself in your sight for all your evils you have committed. And you shall know that I am Yahweh when I have wrought with you for my name's sake, not according to your wicked ways, not according to your corrupt doings, O you house of Israel, saith my sovereign Yahweh. Did you find it yet, or did you turn there?
No.
Okay, let me just turn real quickly to Ezekiel 20, and I will read this out of a more modern translation that still translates his name Yahweh. All right, let's go in chapter 20. We'll begin reading in verse oops, I went to Ezekiel 30, so sorry. Ezekiel 20 in verse I believe it was 39. So I'm going to go over this in a more modern version, but one that still translates his word Yahweh. As for you, house of Israel, Yahweh says, go every one, serve his idols hereafter also. If you will not listen to me, but you shall no more profane my holy name with your gifts and with your idols. So he was rejecting them and telling them to leave. For in my holy mountain, in the mountain of the height of Israel, says Yahweh, there all the house of Israel, all of them, shall serve me in the land. Therefore I will accept them. There I will require your offerings, the first fruits of your offerings, with all your holy things. I will accept you as a pleasant aroma, when I bring you out from the peoples, meaning from paganism, in which you have been scattered, I will be sanctified in you in the sight of the nations. I will be set apart. So Yah's saying he's going to be set apart through us as we set apart ourselves from heathen peoples by not celebrating things like Christmas. And then he says, and you will know that I am Yahweh when I've dealt with you for my name's sake, not according to your evil ways, nor according to your corrupt doings, you house of Israel, says Yahweh. So we see here, as you study this out, that Yahweh says that he wants a people that's going to serve him. He don't want people that's going to participate in pagan holidays. And you cannot be accepted and participate in pagan holidays. Impossible. So he said that I am Yahweh and I change not. So this last part, we went over the scriptures of what Yahweh commands concerning paganism, commands concerning his laws and commandments, that you and I are to keep them. You and I are to set apart ourselves from any pagan holidays. So it's up to you to study. It's up to you to research the truth. Yahshua said in John 8:31-32 that if you continue in his truth, then you will know the truth. And then you will be his disciple. And then that truth will set you free. So I pray this ministered to you. I pray that this gave you some enlightenment. I pray this brought some revelation to you, gave you something to think about, something to research, something to go to Yah and to the scriptures and research and to do your own study. That Christmas is a pagan holiday. New Year's is a pagan holiday. Easter is a pagan holiday. Thanksgiving is a pagan holiday. Halloween is a pagan holiday. So on and so forth. And that you and I are not to participate in it. You and I are to come out from among it and be separate, says Yahweh. Says Yahweh. That's what the scripture says. That's not my opinion. That's what the scripture says. So if you want to connect with us, YHWH'S.com is our website. You can also connect with us at Yahweh Yeshua Assembly on Facebook, on our page, and Mark Pulley on Facebook. You can connect with us also. And so I pray that as you are approaching what the world and what paganism and sun god worshipers call Christmas, that you would receive this truth, that you would turn away from it and separate yourself from you. Yes, you're going to get some flack. Yes, some people will not understand. But most family members, most people that love you, in time will accept and at least reverence what you believe. Now, they may persecute you. They may make fun of you. They may laugh at you. They may do something, say some things about you, some form of persecution. But nonetheless, all those that live according to Yah's laws and commandments will suffer persecution. So nonetheless, I pray until next time, Yah bless you. Yah make his face shine upon you. Yah give you peace. And whatever you are dealing with in your life, that Yah would make a way where there seems to be no way. And so I just pray that you receive something from this. Yah bless you.